Welcome back to another episode of Sketch Nerds, where we break down sketch comedy. What works, what doesn't work, what we like, what we don't like, and why. Today we're going to be discussing sketches from Saturday Night Live and Three Princes. You can find information about this podcast as well as the sketches we're going to be discussing at badmedicinecomedy.com/sketchnerds. All right, very excited to be here. Joining me as always, it's Seth Alcorn.
Hello.
And our producer, Isaiah Hedden.
Hello.
I'm Andy Weld, and today we're joined by Jessica Randazzo. Jess, how you doing?
Hey there. I'm great. Thanks for asking.
All right. Now, normally this is the point in the show where we'd ask Jess about her background in comedy, but Jess has been on the show at least once, if not more than that.
It feels like more than that because of how much I talk.
It's true. It's true. It's very hard for me to signal that a segment is ending because you need to get a word in edgewise. But Jess, I think, one part of your personality is doing comedy, and the only other part is being a mother. So why don't you tell us some funny recent kid stories?
Funny recent kid stories. Oh, wow. How to dissect it from all of just like the rage and crying and tears. No. Well, I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. Both of them turned 8 and 4 in March. And they both.
So you've got a system. You and Joe have like a system.
We have a system. Down. It's like once a year, and then.
So you should be having one soon, then, right? Every 4 years.
No, thank you. Everybody has closed up shop and boarded it all up and moved out of town. It's all done now. Our children are blessed events, and that's all the blessed events I can handle. So. No, comedy is big to them too. I think they both know because my husband, Joe Randazzo, also performs comedy in the DC area. And so they know that mommy and daddy do comedy and what comedy is. And my 8-year-old has actually done like little kid improv stuff on stage. And he's had like 4 minutes of stage time his entire life. And he will tell everybody that he's a comedian, and he's done and this is from years ago and he remembers. So, and then my brother-in-law actually also does stand-up. So I was just talking on the phone the other day to my mother about how he's going to do stand-up this weekend at Caroline's up in New York. And that's a big thing because my father-in-law used to be a bouncer there. So it's a whole comedy family.
Wow.
And so I was saying, G is going to be doing, stand-up this weekend. And my son, Gasper, who we also call G, looked up from his switch and went, what, who, where am I performing? Which stage am I on? Where? And immediately. And I was like, oh, do you have a type 5 ready? You ready? You ready to go, buddy? We got to get to New York because you're going to get on stage. So they both, and then George, the 4-year-old, is constantly, I funny like brother, I funny like mommy, I funny like daddy. Like he understands it as currency in the house, which is what it is. So
does he not know how to use verbs?
He's 4, and all children are on their own, educational
journey to
path.
Verbs.
Yes, yes, he's getting there. Okay, he can. Both my male children can start sentences with the word actually, which I'm trying to stop. Oh boy. So hard, both of them. I'm like, you're too white and too male to use that word at the beginning of a sentence. Please stop. So.
Actually, Jess, what I would say to that.
So we're working on it. But yeah, everybody in the house is comedy. So it's laughter all the time, guys, nonstop.
Well, I would say I like the idea of comedy being a currency in a household. I don't think growing up, comedy in that sense was something that was used as a currency, but you had to be smart enough to defend yourself when jokes started flying and not to walk into a barrage of jokes because the entire dinner table will turn on you if you do something dumb or say something dumb. But it wasn't used as hey, you're funny. Here's some ice cream. There was no benefit. It was all self-defense.
I like the idea of comedy being a currency because I prefer not to have another job.
Okay. I have an idea now. Can't fail. We'll just call it comedy coin, right? It's a cryptocurrency.
There you go.
Whose value is pegged to the amount of comedy We perform.
Oh my God.
That's good. So
maybe we could actually get people to be in our fucking shows.
I'm sorry. I'll be in one again at some point.
No, that's truly not a shot at you.
I know, but I haven't been in one well, there was a pandemic. That's part of my excuse.
Yeah.
we need
Fair,
to
very fair.
bring back the Cookie Wizard. Cookie Wizard is
Oh,
yeah.
I like how that Seth's noise you just made there could apply to any sketch, really.
Any sketch, but definitely any Seth sketch. Any
the
Seth
Cookie
character.
Wizard.
Yes, any Seth character at all. It could be.
That's
for
the
sure.
only one I do.
All right, well, let's get into the episode today. Our first sketch was brought to us today by Seth. Seth, what's the sketch and why'd you pick it?
Oh boy. Well, it's the Roe versus Wade cold open, and I picked it because I like to be topical. No, let me tell you a little bit more about it. So, after Justice Samuel Alito's leaked draft opinion to overturn Roe versus Wade, a flashback to the 13th century England shows the exact moments three men, Benedict Cumberbatch, Andrew Dismukes, James Austin Johnson, vote to outlaw abortion, and Cumberbatch was on promoting Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There's a little bio of him. I'll go ahead and read that too. Benedict Timothy Carlton Cumberbatch, the British, CBE, born 19th July 1976, is an English actor known for his work on screen and stage. He has received various accolades, including a British Academy Television Award, a Primetime Emmy Award, and a Laurence Olivier Award, in addition to nominations for 2 Academy Awards, 2 British Academy Film Awards, and 4 Golden Globe Awards.
But let's be careful. The worst thing that could happen if someone leaks this conversation to the town crier.
Knock, knock. Just kidding, we don't have doors. Anywho, I was outside watching the sheriff throw left-handed children into the river, and I couldn't help but overhear you talking about a new law.
Woman hear ideas and it make her think, why I no have those?
Yeah, something like that. So I have a couple questions.
Careful, Margaret. Don't make us make another hole in your skull so your brain can breathe.
I just want to say real quick, the fact that his name is Benedict Timothy Carlton Cumberbatch sounds like he's a person named Benedict Cumberbatch with an alias of Timothy Carlton.
Benedict Timothy Carlton.
Exactly.
I'm actually kind of surprised that he didn't go by Timothy Carlton. Like, it seems like his agent would have suggested that at some point.
Yes, you're just going for uniqueness.
Yeah.
But,
His agent knew that the Cumberbitches were coming, so it was like, that's a good one. We're gonna
There
do
we
that.
are. They needed that nickname.
He and I have the same birthday, so obviously talented and wonderful and depth.
he must be younger than you, though.
Rude! He's 4 years older than me.
Oh, wow. Oh, Andy, you just got yourself in a peck of trouble.
I'm coming for you, Andy. I'm coming for you. Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
Well, I was going to say you're both British-ish.
Yeah.
This is true.
So that counts.
I do understand.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
There's something
Yeah.
there.
All right, Seth, continue with your introduction.
Yes, please.
Yeah, Seth,
Okay.
continue.
Well, when I was watching this, the thing that I was struck by, they actually started it. They were like 30 seconds into it. And I'm like, oh, I know how they're going to end this, because I know how I wanted it to end, and how I would have ended it if I had the choice would be to have Steve Martin come in as Theodoric Barber of York and say something pithy to wrap up the sketch. Now, that didn't happen, and I was kind of disappointed, but the whole thing really, really felt like a Theodoric Barber of York sketch. What's interesting is that there are 2. There's Theodoric Barber of York and Theodoric Medieval Judge. And the first one takes place in 1303. The second one takes place in 1157. So this one sort of split the difference between them. But yeah, it was really just a lot of it was making fun of how much medieval people didn't know. This one had a bit of a sharper context, as it was making fun of how much medieval people didn't know in the context of the leaked opinion that we've all seen. I will say, though, they were a few centuries off. Alito was quoting from an Elizabethan jurist, so only about 300 years.
Those 300 years really made a difference in the science and technological.
They sure did.
I mean,
old
to be fair,
England made.
Yeah.
To be fair, the Renaissance does happen in between the first thing and second thing.
Yeah, that's true. But they're still burning witches, man.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the things is that the guy that Alito quoted from as being this guy knows what he's talking about presided over 2 witch trials in which the witches were burnt. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
wow.
Fun times.
Yeah.
It's a comedy show, right? We're talking about comedy.
Yeah, I'm jazzed. I'm jazzed. I texted Isaiah before the show and said I can't wait to feel depressed while we talk during this episode. So yeah, so Seth, I think you touched on it a little bit, but explain like what exactly the format of the sketch is and how kind of the mapping is working here.
Okay, so what's happening is it's 3 guys essentially talking about abortion. Cumberbatch's character comes up with this idea, oh, maybe we should outlaw abortion. And then what happens is they proceed to go around and talk about other things that people did in the 13th century, which we now know are bad for a variety of reasons. Like, for example, it's like, while I was, cleaning the hole that we poop out of, and the poop falls in the water and we have a moat. Yeah, right. We know now that that's a breeding ground for cholera. But it's like this kind of thing. And they keep coming up with other things that people did back in the Middle Ages that we wouldn't do. And then they even do stuff like Cecily Strong comes in and they're extraordinarily sexist to her, which is making the point again about the ruling. But they sort of keep doing this. And then I do not know the guy's name.
Which one?
Chris Redd.
Chris Redd, who comes in as the Moor. And yeah. And then he's like, that's it. He says something. He's like, just kidding. I know I don't get a vote. You ever think it's going to be a bad century for you? Like that kind of stuff. And then finally, Kate McKinnon comes in as the village weird woman who's eaten a strange mushroom off of a cow pat and now has visions of the future and talks about how Roe versus Wade will happen and then it'll be overturned. And then, of course, they're going to go burn her as a witch.
Mm-hmm.
And then they all say live from New York at Saturday night.
There you go.
Right?
The classic end of the cold open. I'm not sure we've talked about a cold open on the show before.
Have we? Okay.
I'm not sure we've covered one, but yeah.
Historically, we haven't covered political topics, and those are usually the
I think it's a good point.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, I guess the question is like, that was the format of that show, that sketch. But like, what is a cold open? Like, what is it supposed to do? What is your intent to have? What are they trying to accomplish with the cold open? Is it just, this is where we do the political sketch? Now we've done that. We've talked about the most common thing that's on everybody's lips. Now we can move on with the silly stuff. Is that what the cold open is? Should it be changed to be the political open? Like, why is that happening?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you actually get at the heart of it there is that, a cold open for any show, they happen, sitcoms have cold opens, dramas have cold opens. A cold open is just the beginning of a show that doesn't have credits before it. It's just starting the show without any kind of title screen or setup.
Yeah. So the audience isn't warmed up, so it's
exactly. The audience is cold.
Yeah.
That's why most shows have a stand-up opener or have some kind of opener to warm up the audience so that the main act isn't cold. And the SNL audience has stand-ups doing material before they see the show so that they're a warmer audience. But, the cold open, I think, as you said, Isaiah, has become basically the spot for the much too long political sketch because so often they run 8 to 9 minutes. This one luckily doesn't, but very often they do. They've even run, during political season, during like election season, they'll run 12 minutes sometimes if they're doing a debate.
Well, they end
sketch.
up like fitting the more characters they can fit in, right? The more cameos of celebrities and stuff like that. If there's people, like when Melissa McCarthy was,
Spicy.
Thank you,
Sean Spicer.
Yeah,
Sean Spicer.
And Matt Damon came on as cry your eyes out over a calendar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
that's great. That was so good.
So good.
And they pay all these people big money too to come out and do this.
Yeah, I wonder how much they were paying Alec Baldwin to be Trump for as long as they had him being Trump.
I think it was a lot.
One of the guys in the sketch, with Austin in his name. That's the one who
James Austin Johnson.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
But I think it's become stagnant because I often skip the cold open because I just
That's interesting.
don't care.
Never.
I very
Sacrilege in the
rarely
house.
because I just very rarely find like topical political stuff funny. Just because it just always seems like, all right, you're just kind of like, especially when it's like the news of the day, it's like it's very often just like whatever the first take is. And I think maybe it's just living in a 24-hour news cycle and hot take cycle. But
well,
like,
also DC. Like, honestly, when you
Sure.
leave DC, people aren't paying attention as much. There's other
Yeah.
parts of the country that they don't pay attention to. And we think that it's like on everybody's lips. And you leave here and you're like, wait, you guys don't know / care about A, B, and C? So,
I just know for me, it very often is just a big nothing. And it just feels like, all right, well, I've sat through this and now it's on to the next thing.
I have
That's
just received
interesting.
I've just received an email from SNL and the cold open itself that says you're a big nothing, Andy. So
Yeah, that's
I think
fair.
that you
You and my,
Can I-
SNL and my
if
depression
you-
agree.
just I know this is sketch that we're talking about, but if you are not topically interested in comedy, are you also a person who is not a late night show fan? Like, do you not watch monologues of the? Yeah,
No.
that's like that's for me. For me, that's what like got me through the past several years. Like I
It only enforces my negative feelings.
Oh, I had to hear it from other people, so it like helped me understand that I wasn't crazy. You know what I mean? Like that, and I think that like you're saying, Isaiah, with the SNL cold open, I think that they do present like, let's acknowledge reality. Let's we'll do something funny with the absurdity of what's in the news today. And then, and then we can move on. It's kind of like, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. And now let's try and be funny in other ways, even though funny stuff is not happening in the world, So I think there's a part of that. And I think it's like a brand of theirs that everyone's come to expect. So when big things like this do happen, there are people who tune in, I'm pointing at my face, specifically to see what SNL is going to do with their cold open because of what happened this week in the news, So
I actually find, well, no, it's not true because there are definitely some cold opens that are not, that are just aren't good. They're flat or they run on too long or what have you. But generally, when the cold open is good, it's usually one of, if not the best sketch in the show, which is another good reason to put it first, right? It's if they know it's tight, they know it's good, it's going to get people into what's going on. And Andy, since you mentioned the debate thing, I think because I actually watched this when it aired, but the Perot Bush Clinton debate, which I think is still, I mean, you'd have to be familiar with 90s politics, but it's still yeah.
Can't finish.
Yeah. It's Dana Carvey playing two roles, but I mean, it was a debate sketch. I don't know how long it is, but that thing is still like, I could still watch that and find it to be.
Wasn't the Saddam telephone with Linda Tripp and everything? And wasn't that a cold open?
It was with Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah, but Saddam they call Saddam at the end too. And they're on the phone with Saddam and Monica Lewinsky and Linda Tripp's on the phone too. Yeah.
That was a cold open. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cold open. Yeah.
Has SNL done a cold open episode where they just air a bunch of cold opens back to back throughout the year?
I was wondering that. I was just thinking.
It's not possible. Oh, you mean like a best of cold open?
Yeah,
best of
I was like, by definition, they can't do that.
One cold open after another. That's it. Live from New York, over and over.
I mean, they probably have enough good ones to fill, their 45-minute window.
48 seasons of them. I hope they have.
For sure.
Yeah.
Six good ones.
Andy, I have a question though. Remind me how you felt about the Killer Bees sketch.
Oh, it's way too long. I like it when it gets meta. I like
it has to be that long.
Half of that sketch.
It has to be that long.
Well, even the second half of that sketch is like 10 minutes. It's a 20-minute sketch, isn't it?
I'm not saying that I
don't like long.
I thought it was way too long.
Yeah. Okay.
I think and maybe I've just been like conditioned by our own writer's room or by the classes that I've taken. I've just like got to trim the fat. But it's just like, I just feel like a sketch and I am certainly guilty of writing long sketches. Like I definitely do that. But like a television, a sketch aired on television that's 6 minutes long or more, it just seems to take forever. The Theodoric, Barbara of York one that I watched. I thought the best joke in that was calling Gilda Radner Brunegilda, and the rest
and that
was
happened
like,
That was
30
wow.
seconds into it. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this. They weren't fussed about length in the 70s. And I agree.
There was a more chill, relaxed vibe when it came to a lot of things, actually.
Yeah, I agree that Theodoric Barber of York certainly could have cut, like, they cut a minute and a half, 2 minutes out of it. It would have been a good idea. I forget how long Theodoric Medieval Judge runs, but I would guess it's probably similar. But I think the reason I thought about it, and honestly, I think I was thinking more Medieval Judge than Barber, is because at one point John Belushi gets called up because he's been accused of adultery, and they're like, "How should we punish you for this?" Well, when you were caught thieving, we took your hand, and John Belushi holds up his arm. It's like, and when you were caught lying, we took out your tongue. Adultery. Like, but the reason I thought it was, again, because of the barbaric punishment, which is something that gets mentioned in the Roe versus Wade sketch.
Yeah.
Essentially. So,
well,
yeah, there was. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You finish your saying.
I was just going to say there was a lot. That's why I so badly wanted it to finish with Steve Martin walking in the Theodoric costume, because it really just felt like it was a spiritual continuation of that series.
Do you think, though, that I mean, we just said what we've had 42 seasons. Do you think that there's enough people? 48? Are you kidding me? Didn't they just have the 40? Oh my God, I'm so old.
Yes, just 8 years ago.
Yeah.
They're trying to get to 50 hard. Yeah, real fast.
Wow. No, but do you think that it would resonate? You know what I mean? Because there's certain characters, I think, over the years, but do you think that one would resonate enough with people?
I think it might just be at the cusp of losing its viability. But I would also say that in addition to it being again, I love both of those sketches. If you're going to do something that's topical anyway, right? Like, hopefully this sketch won't be good in a few years for the right reasons.
Yeah.
But why not go ahead and throw that in? I think enough people would have remembered Theodoric Barber of York.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Jess, I'd also say that if it's Steve Martin doing it, it really doesn't matter, because
that's true.
I think Steve Martin is probably the most popular, at least like in the SNL universe, person who could appear and everybody could go, "Oh shit, it's Steve Martin." Like, he appeared in a So-So sketch this most recent weekend on the Selena Gomez episode.
I haven't seen that episode yet.
Oh, of course he did.
Because she was there promoting
she's in
Only Murders in the Building,
right?
Yeah. But it's like, you do perk up because it's Steve Martin.
It's Steve Martin,
it's nice to see that he's doing Only Murders in the Building, but he's not doing comedy in the same way that he was a long time ago. He's much more committed to music now.
That man can play a banjo, though. Have you seen it? I saw him. Oof.
He's very talented.
He taught himself by listening to records?
I believe it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Very talented.
He's a Renaissance man, guys. He's Steve Martin. He's a playwright and a musician and a comedian, and he's everything.
Is there a comedian today that is the Steve Martin of our time? I was trying to find one the other day, and I was struggling to come up with a name. Who is our Steve Martin?
So let's think about what makes Steve Martin, right? Because are the things we're looking for Steve Martin someone who is a talented musician and a talented comedian? Because then you might say, is it Bo Burnham? But Bo Burnham doesn't have the personality and kind of the personableness of Steve Martin, or kind of the goofiness.
Dimitri.
For the most, like, if you think about Steve Martin in The Jerk, like, Bo Burnham's not making that movie. No. So is it a talented comedian with staying power who's also goofy? So is that Paul Rudd? Like, no, because it's not this like voice of comedy. I don't know.
My knee jerk was John Delaney, but I don't think Delaney's good enough.
Mulaney. Yeah.
I don't know why I said Delaney, but excuse me, John Mulaney. But
Mulaney's had a far-reaching influence that people didn't realize because he was a writer for so long, and people didn't realize on SNL, like, Stefan was Mulaney. You know what I mean? Like, so
I feel like the Mulaney bandwagon had a good, tough hit a couple years ago. And so I feel like he's not at that same level, but he was, I would say, on that trajectory where it could have gone where he could have
probably
reached.
wouldn't have had that same hit if he was Steve Martin in 1981, right? Like it's the reason John Mulaney had a hit is because he had a very public relapse and divorce.
Yeah.
And
then a baby.
And him and Olivia Munn aren't together anymore, right?
Unclear.
So it's just chaos.
They were together as of his Netflix taping. So she's on it.
The tabloids basically said like they're not together, but who the fuck knows?
She was backstage on the Netflix thing, and they posted it on YouTube. So
wow. All right. Let's get back to the actual sketch.
Oh, what?
The reason we're here.
Well, you asked the question.
I know. I totally derailed us. The things that stood out.
There is no other Steve Martin. Steve Martin is the Steve Martin of Steve Martins, and that's all.
100%. That's why I couldn't.
Martin Short is the Steve Martin of Steve Martin.
Martin Short is.
I couldn't come up with a name.
I'm going to say Chevy Chase is the. No, he's not. He's just not.
Not even close. I love him because I'm watching this sketch, the barber sketch. And I'm like, he's carrying it. And I don't think there's anyone you could drop into that role today that could carry it the way he's carrying it.
But he's playing Steve Martin.
He's playing Steve Martin.
He's lovable. Doing a character.
Funny.
He's just being.
I love that guy.
He could have the arrow on his head during that sketch. You know,
exactly.
It's the same guy. So for sure.
And it would. We would have loved that. It would have been. Well, it's been difficult since the Normans attacked.
That's the difference between. Do we want to talk differences between these sketches yet, or do you need to?
I want to talk similarities.
Similar. I here's what I was interested in. I remembered the Roe versus Wade one because that was now, and then going back to watch the medieval. As Don Pardo was saying, Barber, I was waiting for Garrett Morris to come out like Chris Redd did, to be like, hey, how about me? Just joking, But, and I was wondering, it kind of shows you how they did do politics back in those days, in those seasons, because they came after Ford and they came after other people at times, but it wasn't like an number one thing, all the time. When they could squeeze something in, it wasn't always about society, like the way that we're going at it, the way that SNL does it now, like it was different. So I thought that was interesting because I was kind of waiting for it, seeing if any cast member of color was going to appear, in this ancient time period. So I think it was different.
It was a year old when that was made. It was a year old, Jessica. Ancient? Really?
Yeah. No, I meant the medieval ancient. Oh, okay. I meant the time period of the sketch.
Also, not the definition of ancient.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I thought that was interesting because I realized I was like waiting for it. And then I had to look up to see who was in Garrett Morris was in, because that cast was Aykroyd, Belushi, Curtin, Morris, Bill Murray, Lorraine Newman, and Gilda Radner. So I was like,
God, imagine if the cast of SNL today had 7 players in it. How fantastic would that be?
Bite your tongue. I love everybody on that stage. I love them all.
I love Bill Murray in his sketch. And he was just doing Bill. He wasn't.
Yeah.
All of them are doing them.
They're doing it, but he's really just doing Bill. Like, straight up.
Jane Curtin is the only one trying to play a character.
Yeah.
It feels like
from that time
period.
Time period, he is just doing Bill. And I love it when he pulls his legs up and he starts whacking the floor.
Well,
the same voice he does in Caddyshack too.
Yes, exactly.
Caddyshack. Yeah. It's the gardener. I was thinking too what has changed like between then and now in terms of props and what they'll put actors through, because you could tell the boots that he's wearing when they lift him up by his ankles, those were obviously special so that they could like tie it tight enough but not hurt his feet, so that he was, because he's being lifted into the air only by that. And now when you see cast members do anything airwise, I mean, they're in a full harness. You know what I mean? Like, it's different. And he definitely could have been dropped right on his head. Even
Well, that's just like standards of practice.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
more
it's
than
safety.
anything.
Yeah. Well, it's
Lawyers got
just
involved.
interesting. It's just interesting to see the differences of what they were. Because I mean, like, you ask anybody, like, see any interview from back then, and they'll say, like, now people go to schooling and classes and classes and classes just so you're good enough to be on Saturday Night Live. And we were just a bunch of dumb kids doing some fun stuff. And we, I mean, they did, Second City and this, that, and the other sometimes as well, but not all of them. And, there wasn't like this as polished idea to you before you were there.
I guess the counterpoint to that is that we still do have shows like that pop up, or maybe YouTube channels are now the vision of that. Obviously,
TikTok videos.
SNL, SNL is now an institution, but there are still versions of people just being raw and being there. If you think about, I mean, it's only 15 years later, and I'm sure we can come with a more modern example. But if you think of like the new group from NYU just becoming the State at 23. There's just like a bunch of 22-year-olds. It's just like, here, make your sketch show. And I think that does happen because you're trying to capture zeitgeisty things. And people have more training now.
Andy, we're 25 years out. We're 25 years out from the State.
I mean, I was 2 when the State came out. So it's not like
you shut up. You go to hell. You go to hell and you die.
Oh, I'm already there, buddy. All right. So I think one of the things that stood out is they make a COVID joke to me. It's in the Roe v. Wade sketch. It parodies. In fact, this was the thing I maybe liked the most, because I think the thing that this sketch fell flat for me personally.
Okay.
Because it felt to me as though I wish there was more mapping of. I wish it was more about comparing medieval to modern rather than just like, look at all these other bad medieval ideas.
Yeah.
Like I wish there was more comparison happening, but there's this comparison plagued to COVID, and you do the mask bit and the My Body, My Choice, which did come up in the context of people not wanting vaccinations.
Yeah.
So that felt relevant, but I'm wondering how people thought the COVID joke landed and that aspect of it.
I thought the COVID joke, I enjoyed the COVID joke because it was here are the people we're making fun of. This is their general mindset. Let's poke all of the places where that's visible. I do honestly, though, I agree with you. I don't know that the entire sketch fell flat, but did it feel like they didn't know how to end it? Yes, it did.
Hi, welcome to Saturday Night Live.
I didn't enjoy the 1,000 bees. I was like, there was a better punchline than.
The audience didn't enjoy it either. There was a kind of
exactly. That was the one
down note.
That was it. But I enjoyed
Plan
when
B.
Cecily came out and she was like, knock knock. Just kidding. We don't have doors. Like, this is how. And then like she was like, since I'm almost of the childbearing age of 12, don't you think I have? And then Kate McKinnon coming back out and they're like, an ogre. And she's like, no, just a woman in her 30s.
Yes.
Like, it's just
the throwaway jokes.
But it's like it was like then and now, the idea that like that's still something, that society's upset with. And
I guess for me, like that's the stuff that falls flat to me, because it just takes this like,
because you don't have ovaries. We get it, Andy. I know.
No. It's not that. It's the general idea of this like medieval people are stupid thing. Like and like it just plays into this trope that's totally untrue.
But I think as a woman in your 30s, you still feel that that's how society treats you now. That's her joke.
It's what hasn't changed.
It's not changed.
It hasn't changed.
Like a woman in your 30s, you're not appealed to anymore. Nothing is for you. Have you seen Victoria's Secrets? As soon as I turned 30, it was for 15-year-olds. I grew up being like, oh my gosh, Victoria's Secrets is so classy. They have clothes. If you guys looked past like the four pages in the magazine, there used to be clothes. There used to be magazines.
I'm sorry, you think I needed to look at a Victoria's Secret catalog. I was relying on the mysterious bag of porn we found out in the woods.
All I had was J.C. Penney magazines.
Those
things are thick.
And then, but as soon as 30 happened, Victoria's Secrets, they now service just that polka dotted dog is for 15-year-old girls. So that's what she's saying, is that society doesn't care about 30-year-old. Once you turn 30.
Yeah,
I think more what I was thinking was like the door joke or the falling off the edge of the world and being eaten by turtles joke. Like that just feels like that's stuff that is just like in our mind of things that medieval people believed, which they didn't believe, right? Like for the most part.
At various levels of...
Didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that they thought.
They actually there was a Greek guy
so.
who proved that the world was round. So if you were educated enough and had access to the right books that would tell you that this
Then
Greek
you
guy...
Was that Aristophanes? Is that it?
No. Aristophanes was the guy who was
learning.
like, Plato, I think, said a man is a featherless biped, and Aristophanes came in holding a chicken and said, "Behold a man!" and plucked chicken.
That's how you win arguments.
I'm sorry, I'm wrong about that too. I'm just wrong about everything today. No, Aristophanes was playwright. Now I'm right. I was wrong before.
No, Aristophanes. Oh, I said it wrong. Aristophanes was a Greek man who measured the circumference of the world.
When you
I was thinking of the playwright then. There we go.
Andy,
I've been wrong 3
when you
times.
go back and edit this, will you insert the word "actually" before?
Like I edit it.
Yeah.
Like I edit this. All right. Any other last words on this sketch or the abortion debate?
I've got a couple of words for that one.
Here we go. All right.
Was this the best sketch to tackle the abortion debate? Probably not. Did they pull something out of the archives and say, hey, let's do an updated version of this? Yes, they 100% did. Is it weird that an Englishman is doing the sketch about American law?
I think it helps that I was thinking this. I think it helps that he's British because we're talking about British, like they're talking about.
Good point.
It is medieval laws from England that we're talking about, right? So I think it adds to that. I think that helps because it is somebody from England also going, we think this is dumb too. Like we're not, nobody is still believing this over there. And we're the ones who wrote it. You know what I mean? So I think that there's a little bit that carries a little more weight than just everybody pretending to have an accent. So
great point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, is it absolutely great as a sketch? No. Does it have some good zingers? Yeah, it's got some pretty good zingers.
I think
the point.
Go ahead, Seth. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I think the point is because they say this a few times. Like Cumberbatch has that line about, well, we've clearly reached the limit of human knowledge. So the point is not that medieval people are stupid. It's that there's so much they didn't know.
Yeah.
And for us to go, well, clearly they knew better than we do
or this is how it's always been.
Yeah, that's
in that regard. Yeah.
It's probably not a great argument to make, even if, again, you are actually making the argument that the Elizabethans knew better than we do about some stuff.
And I think that also this cast is super. I mean, I think it's well balanced at this cast, and it's like you said, it's large, but it's the women of this cast are very strong people.
They're Cecily Strong.
Yeah, they're Cecily Strong. She's super strong, and her accents are on point. Every one of them.
Yes, one of my favorites.
So good, but like all of the women in this cast, I think, are all strong women who have strong views and definitely want to make sure that yes, we want to do comedy, and we're here to do our comedy job. But we have a platform and we're not idiots about it. And if we can say something, we will. I mean, even just Kate McKinnon, after Trump won and like her cold open and they just sang hallelujah, you know what I mean? And the world cried. Like, so I think there's something to be said for the direction of why this sketch was hoisted as well, because of the power players in the cast that want that voice amplified, so it's funny, there's absurdity, but it means something different maybe to this person on the Sketch Nerds today than it might to the other three players. Which one of these things is not the same? So
Isaiah's black.
Hey, more's got more, baby.
For those listening at home.
Wait, I'm Jewish. Does that no? Okay, we're not.
There you go. That's what. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You also
well, let's throw to the break, and we'll be back with more abortion talk.
First times can be awkward for everything, including comedy. So why not look back at a comedy writer's first attempt at making an audience laugh? From Philly Sketchfest, have a listen to My First Sketch, the podcast introducing you to sketch comedians from around the world, starting with their first sketch. Hosted by me, Josh Hyam, we'll explore how a writer got started, what shaped their sense of humor, and where they go from here. Check out My First Sketch at myfirstsketch.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm AJ Schrader, and I believe everyone has a story worth telling, and also that I should potentially profit off of their stories. That's why I started the podcast I Wrote You a Pilot, where each episode I talk to a not yet famous person about their television interest, and then make them read a television pilot I hastily wrote for them with the hopes of catching the eyes of the president of television. It's available on most major podcast platforms, or you can find out more directly at iwroteyouapilot.podbean.com.
All righty, welcome back. Did I say abortion? I meant kite flying. Isaiah, introduce our next sketch.
All right, our second sketch today comes from our list of sketches we should talk about. This is Kites by Three Princesses. Our three princes. The Bluster Twins Kite Shop presents Win Mastery, Becoming Win, hosted by Tenor, Killian, and Njord. Yes. So this is a sketch team. I think they're a sketch team. I think they're actually an improv team that does video sketches. Devin Field, Zach Oyama, and Jacob Wasaki. These guys are all California West Coast comedians. They're doing great things. Zach is the one that I know and recognize from his days on College Humor, YouTube Originals, making videos, sketches with them. So I think I found their sketch comedy through him. He probably posted on Twitter or something, and I just went through there. But they have a YouTube page with a bunch of stuff on it. And this one is directed and edited by Ryan Anthony Martin. I think it's hilarious. There's a simple game to it, and it's basically a parody video of learning how to fly kites, put on by the three brothers that are the Bluster Twins. And here's the sketch.
Hi, we're the Three Bluster Twins.
We know what you're thinking. Isn't flying a kite kind of a lame thing to do?
Then why are we having the time of our life?
Because we're Flying the Fundamentals. And we're going to show you some tips and tricks that will get you high on that wind. Come along with us now.
First trick in your kite flying arsenal, the barrel roll. What you're going to want to do is make your arm, sending weight through your elbow. Up.
All right, Isaiah, we've got about 30 sketches on the sketches to cover list. Why did you pick this one?
Because we invite people on the show and they pick a sketch they like. A lot of people are going to go with Saturday Night Live or something with a bigger name, more recognizable, something that already has like 1 million views. And I watch a lot of sketch comedy online on YouTube. And so if I find something I'm like, this is really good or doing something unique, I try and save it. And so if we get a chance like this to bring one of those sketches up and talk about it, like chances are you've not heard of this sketch or the sketch team. And so I want to bring it up so people could just see there's so much good stuff out there that's not being seen because of YouTube algorithms and then there used to be a way where you would go on YouTube and you would find these things, and now you can't. And so this is one of the few ways of getting it up there. But the reason this sketch ended up on the list is because of the premise, the execution, and how the game escalates. I think all three of those are done very, very, very well.
Why don't you go into how the game escalates? Because that's where I think the sketch falls the flattest, is not escalating.
I think I'm with
game.
Andy on this.
What?
I think this game escalates very weakly. But Isaiah, what do you think? How does this game escalate?
This is like a late 80s, early 90s kite flying parody where these three brothers are going to show you
instructional video.
Yeah. They're going to show you all the cool ways to fly a kite. And as you're trying to do this, the wind is hitting the mic and messing the mic up and cutting off, and it's giving them technical difficulties.
Every time they go to tell you exactly how to do it at home,
you just hear wind noise. Mm-hmm. And it just gets louder and louder. It escalates more and more to a point where you really can't hear them anymore. So they basically change the video. Say, all right, we're going to subtitle the video now. They go to subtitle the video, and the wind picks up again. And this time, it blows the subtitles off the video, and it hits one of the guys in the face. And then they're like, okay, we're actually re-recording this. We re-record all the audio in a booth. And then the wind blows the booth down, and they're back in the field, and it's just like things just go out of chaos. Does it need an ending? Probably. But I do like how it goes from this minor little thing of this wind messing up the recording to the point where the wind is now front and center and has just taken over and ruined their video, basically.
They even have that poster too, where the third of the twins, right?
Yeah, he tries to use a poster.
And it looks like, I was just thinking, who spent all this time creating this prop with this beautiful technical how to fly a kite and the downdrafts and everything. And it's just funny that they would use that. I think it's also funny that you see all of these retakes and, hi, we had some problems there, so we're going to try it again. And in reality, what would happen is you would just yell cut. You would never see that on the finished product, right? So that also I really enjoy, that they just were like, this sucked, but we're going to keep it in and try again.
There were definitely some. I liked a lot of jokes. I liked the letters blowing away. I liked the re-recording the audio, and one of the brothers had weak wrists.
The infighting when the wind happens, they're like, this is why you're not a professional.
And I love the delightfully absurd implication, or not an implication, the delightfully absurd idea that what they're going to do after having all this trouble with this wind all day is, instead of going inside and recording it, they're just going to put up a black blanket and be like, okay, we're going to record it in the same place with the wind.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised when the letters started falling off, because I was like, oh, now they've done the closed caption. How is this going to be a problem now that they have the closed caption? And then it just started kind of taking, and it was artistic, how it didn't just slide off or anything. They
start to wiggle
first. One by one, they wiggle a little.
And then one of them hits the guy, so it breaks that wall.
Yeah.
I definitely love that.
Yeah.
Strong physical
all
comedy.
of them wearing the windbreakers.
Definitely strong physical comedy for me on this one. I like that. I think my complaint was it just felt like until they get to the letters, I didn't find that any of those beats were noticeably different from any of the other beats.
Yeah, and that's where I agree with Andy. I think if they'd cut directly from the one guy being drowned out by the wind to the letters to the makeshift booth, because it's
tightened it.
Well, hang on, wait. They needed 3 different people to do their segments and then go back and try to listen to it and go, oh yeah, this didn't work for anybody. Now at this point that we've done 3 of these, now we're going to go back and add subtitles, and then now we're going to go back and do ADR. I was just like, yeah, it's the same. Yeah, we can't hear you because of the wind. I will say there was some a little perhaps additional unexpected comedy in the wind window section, because it's clear that the guy flying the kite is having a very hard time keeping it from crashing.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
It does seem like they're actually flying kites, which I found impressive, because it's probably been 20 plus years since I tried to fly a kite, but it was certainly challenging.
It depends where you are. Sometimes, as sketch writers and performers, you think about what brought them to the table, or when they're just like, it's a real windy day, let's go fly a kite. Do you have a kite? When was the last time we flew a kite? Just where this came up again. But I think with the tracking, the visual that makes it look like it's the late 80s, early 90s video, and the windbreakers, the neon color block, that everybody had, kind of a thing. It really sets the scene, and it really takes you back.
I think they nailed the aesthetic.
Back there to begin with, Andy.
Well, I think they nailed the aesthetic. I love the aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
The music.
I'm curious, what did y'all think of the pelican joke?
Oh, yeah, because it's not a pelican.
It's a seagull.
It's a seagull.
they just break it. Hey guys, look at that pelican. Then they show a seagull for 5 seconds, and then it's just back to the scene. I'm just curious as to what you all thought about that.
I laughed.
I thought it was cute. But in terms of like strengthening what is essentially the big joke is that these people don't know what they're doing, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I wouldn't have. It was fine, but it would not have completely ruined the sketch if it hadn't been there.
It to me, it sounded like one of those things where, like, on set, someone may have said that,
Yeah,
and it was hilarious, and they're like, "We should put it in the sketch. Just, I'll say the line, and we'll just put it in. We'll find a place to put it in," and then they put it in the sketch. And I'm sure when they watch it, everyone who worked on it just laughs, finds it hilarious. But I think for where it is in the sketch and the arc that we're taking, you don't need it. It doesn't. It could have been a cutout.
I don't know, guys. I thought it was pretty solid, but again, I do spend a lot of my time doing comedy specifically for 8 and 4-year-olds. So, and they would have found that hilarious. My 8-year-old would have been like, "What's not a pelican?" Like, and I did laugh heartily at that. So,
well, I definitely like the idea where they open up and they're like, we're the 3 twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that where it fits what's happening and helps tell the story. I think that those kind of odd things help, where he like shows you how to fly the kite and he does the big windmill arm spin. So like there's weird stuff like that I think fits the weird vibe of their sketches. But I felt like that was one that was like almost a half step out of the trajectory of the sketch.
Does the guy who pointed out the said seagull, does he always wear pigtails in the other sketches? I just seen other sketches.
He does not.
Njord?
Yeah.
Yeah, Njord.
Yeah, there was like, I honestly, one of the things that I liked the most was we're the Bluster twins. We're the 3 Bluster twins. No explanation is given. Nothing is. It's the 3 Bluster twins. I was going to say even the Calvin's triplets on Comedy Bang Bang got an explanation. Go look it up, listeners. It's fine.
So I think for me, like building on what Seth just said, like it's those jokes that stand out the most to me about this sketch, rather than the structure of the sketch as a whole. Like I love the line. It's really thrown away because it's kind of as the chaos starts to build. But after they say 98% of people don't store their kites correctly, they say, we're the only people who oil and butter our strings.
Who both oil and butter.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to go as fast as we can. We want as much speed as we can. Yeah. One thing I did notice, because we talked about this in the context of the other sketch too, is that I was watching this and from frame 1, I'm like, I know what's going on. I know why I like this. I know why I think this is funny. And I'm like, how many people that much younger than I am have familiarity with late 80s to early 90s training or how-to videos?
Yeah, right.
And, it's like, it's certainly not like people aren't doing how-to stuff now. It just doesn't have the weird production values that videos of this type from that era do.
Even also, I'll say, like you could do like an entire thesis on this, but the way that people have changed in front of the camera every generation, and how confident you are and how relaxed you are. And nowadays people grow up on, my kids, my 4-year-old, you take a picture, you take a video, let me see it now. Like they know how to perform from the beginning. And if you go back and watch, like, I watch all the old, like, cozy TV shows, and the old interview, I can't even remember who it is, but it's like pre-Carson, whoever was interviewing people pre-Carson, like in the 60s, like he had Kennedy's secretary
Jack Parr?
Maybe it's Jack Parr. And even down to Jack Parr, everybody who comes on, there's a completely different vibe to, I'm being interviewed by somebody on TV. There's this kind of relaxed, you don't know that you're not performing for the camera the same way. And they nailed that, where it was much more like, hi, how are you? And people don't do that as much anymore.
Yeah.
There's a different vibe to that generation on camera as opposed to what we have now. And that they did that really well, because that's exactly what that was.
Or Dick Cavett is maybe who you're thinking of.
That is it. Dick Cavett. Oh, yeah. My
Yeah.
husband can't stand watching it with me. He's like, this is excruciating to watch because everybody is so very different as a human being in front of a camera than they are now. Yeah.
Oh,
I love it.
We tried to watch, like, Allison was flipping through channels one night and she came across a 70s episode of Carson. And
yeah, it's hard.
We
to watch.
turned
It's
to each other
different.
and we were like, why does everybody think he was funny?
Yeah.
Like,
It's
this is
different, right?
awful.
It's weird.
The times they change. Well, I
Thesis material, listeners.
I have something to jump on. Seth talked about how it's a retro style video, and many of the people who probably would watch this may not understand what is happening because of the retro style of it. But didn't Kyle Mooney's Netflix show, Saturday Morning All-Star Hits, the whole thing was set as a 90s Saturday morning cartoon.
Did that show do very well?
I've never heard of it until you just said it right now.
I've never heard of it
very
until
well?
someone else pointed it out to me, right? Those, like, and there's something to be said, and this comes up for us in the writer's room, right? Because someone wants to parody a song that's 22
That
years
Fat
old.
Joe did.
Right. No, and I did the same thing, right? I'll reference people, musicians and stuff from the 90s that were just like, it's because, like, in late elementary school and early middle school, when you're like, your knowledge
That's
of
your
pop culture is
impressionable time.
starting to form.
Yeah, when you're like 13,
right, exactly. And so,
14,
like, that
stuff hits you
so
on stage.
looking back at that, I find it ridiculous. So I want to talk about what I find ridiculous about it. But, there's the question of, like, who is this for, right? Does everything have to be for everyone? And if this works for people who are 30 and above or whatever, because even though I was born in 1990, or 1991, certainly would have watched those kinds of videos. You're really you're really not that much older than me.
Seth's face.
But
I was almost babysitting by the time you were born.
I was 14 years old.
Yeah. There you go.
I don't know how to explain that people age in
Just
time.
be sorry for it, Andy.
No,
just
it's not that-
apologize for your youth. Just,
we don't like it, Andy, is the point. We understand it.
apologize
We're
and move on, for
experiencing it,
goodness
and
sake.
we don't like it. You wait 14 years until you're 45, and you're doing sketch comedy with some 31-year-old. You see how you feel.
Some whippersnapper.
Like the world is
okay?
going to exist when I'm 45.
No, he's got a good point.
Bad Medicine celebrates 25 years of DC comedy. Kill me now.
Performing in an irradiated auditorium.
Irradiated, flooded,
not irradiated,
underwater.
Yeah.
Positive vibes. Hey, we're 331 feet above sea level here in DC, guys. I've recently looked it up. So,
well, no, I mean, that's
Baltimore's
great.
only 31. Baltimore and New York 31. Us 331.
But tell that to the Potomac.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, not if you live like in Georgetown.
Hey,
you're in
River, you
trouble.
dumb shit. You're not supposed to be up this
in a
high.
van down by the river is where you
Yes.
should not be living.
I was.
Sorry.
No, I was just sorry. I was just thinking of something else since we were talking about this. But there was a thing that we used to do in the Blue Show in Comedy Sports when we were playing a particular game called Shopkeeper. Because in the Blue Show, if you were playing Shopkeeper, the idea was that customers would come in and try to get the shopkeeper to guess what they wanted to buy. And in the Blue Show, inevitably, someone would yell dildo.
Dildo.
Right.
Always dildo.
Can you explain what Comedy Sports is and what
Right.
is the difference between a blue and a red show?
Comedy
What a
Sports.
dildo
Well,
is.
we didn't even call it a red show. It's just the Blue
Yeah,
show's
are
the
they
later
called
one where
red
we get a little
shows?
blue.
I don't know. I just know they wear red shirts. I called
All
it.
right.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. So Comedy Sports is a franchised short form improv troupe. There are Comedy Sports troupes in many, many cities across the US and Canada. And I think some even maybe in the UK.
Is it sports with a Z? Seth?
It is sports with a Z.
At the end, yeah.
And it's short form improv. So it's not long form improv. It's not one continuous plot or story. It's a bunch of little games. Right.
Like on Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's much more.
Exactly like Whose Line Is It Anyway? There we go. And the Blue Show is the one that we call it because we get a little blue, which means we do the adult material. So that's what I was doing. That's what was going on. But once as the shopkeeper, and I don't know, I don't think I started this, but I certainly did it every time I was a shopkeeper and this thing happened. But once you got what they were talking about, you'd sort of move back away from where you were and go, I need to go behind the beaded curtain. And then the audience would be like, it's going behind the beaded curtain, which only makes sense if you went to a mom and pop video store in the 80s and knew that's where they kept the porn. That is what that reference is.
Yeah.
And when I was in my 20s and 30s, that was fine. Not so sure it would fly as well now.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's no video stores anymore. So.
No.
Don't have that.
People are like, what? Like, there was a store where
you gotta get past the video store per hurdle.
Did you go there to stream video? No,
no.
I think my philosophy is still like, if we know, like our average, like if we do a show, we know our show's audience is going to be in their 30s for the most part. Like probably some people are in their 20s, some people who are older, but the bulk of our audience is in their 20s, in their 30s, and their 40s. So I am rarely fazed by those kind of, we're referencing something that's for a specific group of people. We have certainly run into situations where we performed for a younger crowd and stuff hasn't landed. But, I think hopefully stuff is funny enough that it doesn't matter if you get the reference, right? And that's usually a hallmark of good, often of good parody or of lasting parody, that you can still laugh at it, even if you don't get exactly what's being parodied.
Well, it also is, it doesn't matter how old the thing is if it's still enough in the cultural consciousness to be relevant.
It also needs a good setup. I think a lot of jokes that fall flat, even if people don't get the reference, or even if you do, it's really the setup. If you set it up right, you say, this is an important thing, and now this important thing is ruined. That's the joke. Whatever it is will work as long as you set it up correctly.
So how would you have ended the sketch instead?
They get blown away. They too become kites, basically. Yeah.
I like the idea of that. Remember, everything back then, I feel like, ended with, even though we didn't really have drones back then, I don't know really how this happened all the time, but it feels like all of those kind of 90s things was like a pullback crane shot.
Called a helicopter.
Everybody just waving. And I would have liked to see like a full pullback shot and just like dozens of broken, crushed kites around them.
Oh, that would have been
a great
and then
shot.
just the infighting more. You know what I mean? Like just smack, just Three Stooges stuff by that point. But I like the blowing away as well. That's good.
All right, well, let's move to the last segment of the show. Jess, you were the guest. I know you didn't really bring a sketch, but why don't you come up with a rating system for us for the sketches?
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm going to say ribbons on a tail of a kite.
Ribbons on the tail of a kite is the ranking system.
Yeah.
So, Jess, let's start with the Roe v. Wade cold open. How many ribbons on the tail of a kite would you give that sketch?
All of them, Andy. I would give it all of the ribbons.
All of the ribbons.
Mm-hmm.
It's the perfect sketch in your mind.
It's not perfect, but it delighted me. It satisfied me on many emotional levels, and I thought that they did a great job with what it was. So I would give it all of the ribbons -2.
We always want our guests leaving sketch nerds feeling satisfied.
Satisfied. That's the name of the game, guys.
We do.
Isaiah, what did you think?
I liked the Roe v. Wade cold open. I loved the way they were saying the words, the wigs, the throwaway jokes. I mean, like their accents, not
I know what you mean.
The shoes, genitals,
childy.
Yeah,
Childy,
and drowning left-handed kids, women in their 30s. Just like there was a lot to it to like, and I'm glad it didn't go longer than it did. So for me, I think again, for a political cold open, it's a pretty good one. So I would give it 5 Supreme Court justices length.
Damn it, Isaiah, that was going to be my joke.
Everybody's topical.
Yep.
Well, Seth, I'll give you time to think of another joke.
Too late.
I know
Too late.
for me.
Too late. No more jokes.
I think, like, as I said before, I just struggle with this hard political comedy to like really engage in it in a way
Why
that
do you
is
even live in
enjoyable for
DC?
me.
Why do you even live here? I mean,
I don't
really.
even know anymore. So that did slow it down a bit for me. But I think, like Isaiah said, like a lot of the kind of individual jokes work. But I think I voiced kind of the stuff I didn't like about it before. I don't really feel the need to rehash it. So I will give this 3 ribbons on the back of a kite. Seth?
Well, I will give it as many ribbons as it takes to pull 6 of the current justices out of their seats. Okay, there we go. That was the thing. All right.
I found it.
Yeah, I found it. I did. I had to work. a little bit. Yeah, it's not perfect. I think it was actually, I'm going to say this, I think it might have been done a disservice by being the cold open, because having to end with Live from New York at Saturday night was not a good way to end that sketch. But I liked the zingers. I like the constant things have changed. That is the message of this sketch. Things have changed for the better in so many ways. Please stop rooting your decisions and stuff this old.
So the barber sketch kind of ends with the monologue from Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Should this sketch ended the same way? Should he had just turned to the camera and broken the fourth wall and said, you know what? This is crazy. Who would ever make this decision
right.
and then
What
say
if
the
we'd
thing that
gone
needs to be
through
said?
some sort of enlightenment and found some kind of humanistic way of making these decisions? Yeah, I would have gone for that in a big way.
Yeah.
All right. What about Kites by 3 Princes? Isaiah?
I love the sketch. I wish they made more. Their YouTube channel is looks like it's 3 years old. Not 3, like they haven't touched it in 3 years. Pandemic probably. Life, move on. College humor disappeared. So a whole lot of things happened.
Zach Oyama's been on Comedy Bang Bang.
They all been on Comedy Bang
Comedy
Bang, basically, which is great. So for me, this really is a great singer. I love the wind. I love how it takes a physical presence in the sketch and the blowing the subtitles away. I was like, this is an okay sketch. But once the subtitles started blowing away, I was like, I see what you did here. You worked your way up to this point for this one joke, and I'm on board. This is great. As an editor who's had to put subtitles into a video, that is amazing. I love it. Very great. So I will give it the subtitle length of the longest book read out loud. So I don't know how many words that is. Length of a kite tail.
Good. Complicated. I know for me, I like this one better than the first one. I do like the playfulness of it. I think the game could have escalated better, so I'll give this 7 kite tails. Jess?
I too was thinking 7 kite tails. I think
There you go.
it's a
No
lot
more,
of
no more
fun.
comments.
I think it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate too. I knew they had Isaiah with the editing, but they did a lot of. It was fun, and any time that you present like a happy family unit, and then there's infighting, it has me every time. I really enjoy the realness behind the hi today. We're all one big happy family, and then they never are, and that to me, I always am tickled by that.
Well, maybe this was a sketch for editors in the same way that Fred Armisen made a stand-up special for drummers. Seth, what did you think?
I agree with you guys. I'm going to give it I'm going to give it 7, the same as you get the number of kids in sextuplets.
All righty, everybody. I don't believe, does anyone have anything they want to plug? I don't know when this episode will come out. There's a Bad Medicine show at the DC Improv on July 14th,
Bastille
2022. Bastille Day, correct?
Yeah, the summer stuff is coming up.
Yep.
So if check our website out, badmedicinecomedy.com. For classes, we got a bunch of shows. Come out.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything they want to plug? Do it, Seth.
I'm still
Seth,
doing podcasts.
You still doing your podcast?
Yeah. What do you podcast?
What's your podcast?
All of my podcasts. I'll just do the 3 that I'm responsible for producing. So that's Arrow Chapter and Verse. We're taking an extremely extended vacation from the Arrowverse. We're watching currently Justice League Unlimited because we wanted to watch something we enjoyed. And if in fact the CW changes its contract with Netflix so that all of the Arrowverse shows go to a streaming service that is not HBO Max, we're going to have to reevaluate what the title of our show is, because I'm not paying for another service to stream those shows. There's also How I Spent My Allowance, which is a diverse panel analyzing and discussing old Dungeons & Dragons novels and anthologies from the 80s and 90s. And then, of course, Flailing Through First, where my friend Will and I debate the rules and regulations of first edition D&D. So podcasts for nerds. That's what I'm doing.
I thought that was for people who run through first base too quickly.
Yes, it is. And they just, and their arms just go this way and that.
Sure, you got to be careful. If you turn left, you can find out. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of Sketch Nerds. We'll be back again soon. For Jess Randazzo, Seth Alcorn, and Isaiah Hedden, I'm Andy Well. Thank you for listening to Sketch Nerds.
This episode was produced by Isaiah Hedden and recorded in Washington, D.C. The closing music tracks were provided by SoundtrackForEverything.com. All clips in this podcast were used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act, Fair Use Exemption, for criticism and commentary. The Sketch Nerds podcast is brought to you by the sketch comedy group Bad Medicine, DC's best sketch comedy about the worst of humanity. For showtimes, videos, and funny t-shirts, please visit badmedicinecomedy.com.